All right, thank you very much to Bruce. And now we're going to have Stephen come up and give the first, I think you're splitting your speech, so it's going to be 4 minutes. Speech for the negative.
Can I turn this chicken off before I start?
It's a turkey.
Hopefully that new screen will eventually solve. So really glad to be here, guys. I'm really excited to be defending something that's very near and dear to my heart, and probably my arteries too. So I want to start off with just a couple of sort of thought experiments. Are we okay with animal testing? Because modern medicine would be crippled without animal testing. It's simply the case. And sort of the British Royal Society, one of the most prominent scientific organizations, said that there would have been none of our major developments in modern medicine without animal testing. It's probably saved billions of human lives. And I think in animal testing, we're probably cruel to animals too. But I think the benefits to human beings are too great for us to forego this. Or take one of PETA's probably more silly positions. PETA is against seeing eye dogs, literally from their website. I think that we generally care about blind people enough to think that seeing eye dogs are probably okay. So why are these important? Because Grant and I want to advance a different philosophy that I think makes a little more sense with our intuitions. So we think that rights adhere in human beings and human beings alone. Something is only unethical insofar as it violates the rights of human beings. So why do we think we should draw the line at human beings? Because we think there are certain characteristics unique to humans that make us uniquely deserving of rights. So I think the most important of these is rationality. Human beings are thinking, feeling creatures. We understand the world. We can make calculated, thoughtful decisions. We seek self-actualization. We want to achieve greatness, uniqueness, knowledge, respect, enlightenment. We have aims and goals and plans. We can be, and this is really different from animals, we can be profoundly unhappy even if all our needs are satisfied. If I'm full and well-rested and have a great house, I can still be really unhappy about my life. And I think there's something really interesting about that. We feel suffering much more acutely. We remember it longer. We avoid it more strongly. And it makes other people, our friends, family, and community, much sadder. And we empathize with other human beings much more. We know the true nature of their suffering. And we know that they care about the same things as us in general. So all of these things are true for human beings, and probably not true for the vast, vast majority of animals, if not all animals. We think animals are inherently incapable of abstract thought beyond their everyday needs. That animals lack the self-awareness required to evaluate their decision-making. Instead, they really only act on the basis of instinct. They don't seek to act morally, and they have no aims, plans, and goals. So why does all this matter? We think these characteristics are crucial in determining who deserves ethical consideration and who deserves rights. And this is really for 2 reasons. The first is that rights are about allowing individuals to fulfill their aims and their goals of life. Like, human beings alone can make these meaningful plans and have goals. Animals cannot. Notice that this isn't about suffering. For example, if I'm a human being and I say, I'm sort of on my deathbed and I say, don't medicate me, I'm going to face substantial suffering. But we respect that preference because it's one of my aspirations, it's one of my goals. And that's the sort of thing that we give rights for. Second reason why rationality matters for rights is that being denied a right is a pain so much more substantial to a human being than it is for an animal. Like, Spot the dog would be thrilled to be my pet. But me as a human being would probably hate being Grant May's pet. So what we're trying to say here is that, really, when you apply this thinking to meat, you come to the position, this is Grant and our position, that eating meat is not unethical. It is ethical and it is a fair choice. It involves a group of creatures that we don't think have rights because they don't have the characteristics necessary to deserve rights. And eating meat probably makes like the 90% of the world that eats meat really happy. Like, I love my bacon, I love my steak, my sushi, my burgers and cheese, my milkshakes that comes from that. There's milk in there that comes from animals, and even like my seared tuna with wasabi paste. Like, there's all sorts of cool things you can make with meat. If I replace all that with like okra, collard beans, and tofu, or even tofurkey, We'd probably be really sad. The simple fact is that meat makes a lot of us really happy. And I simply don't think that 90% of the world's population are evil, unethical people. So the bottom line is, the question is who deserves moral consideration? We think human beings deserve that, and we don't think eating meat is unethical.
Thank you, Stephen. And now deliver the second half of the first side for Yale. For 3 minutes, Brett May.
Thank you. So Stephen omitted a specific argument on our side, which is that if you side with us, we'll reduce the instances of tofu, apple crisp, and vegan meatballs that fat people like me find particularly sad. We just think that's another reason to side with us. So that being said, I want to talk about Bruce's purported moral framework. So first off, this is clearly not a moral framework, because he's never warranted where these norms come from. Do they come from God? Well, most of us would find that suspect. We generally like secular justifications for moral imperatives. Do they come from positive law? Well, our society has no such laws that enshrine this as a moral imperative. Or do they come from universal norms? If they do, it seems incredibly shocking that almost no society that I'm aware of bans the consumption of eating meat. Moreover, he hasn't warranted these imperatives at all. But so all he can rely on is an intuition that we might have that we should act this way, which is a problem for him because the vast majority of us simply don't have this intuition. We can't just say we should do something and provide no justification for it. But moreover, it's not just the case that his framework is unwarranted, it's also clearly not exhaustive and ad hoc. Ask yourself this question: should I lie, cheat, and steal? Well, I didn't harm the environment, I didn't cause cruelty to animals, and I didn't deprive the people, poor of food. In that case, it's unclear to me whether those actions are unethical, given that his moral framework says that these are the 3 mandates that we must follow. However, it's not just the case that the framework is unexhaustive, it's also the case that what he says are mandates are clearly not categorical, because he gives us no sense of how to weigh these norms in conflict. Imagine we had a painkiller that would reduce the suffering of millions of people, but extracting that painkiller would involve destroying a tree that would denigrate the rainforest. What do you do on his side of the house? On one side, you're supposed to reduce suffering, but you're also supposed to care about the environment. He gives us no sense of how to act in that circumstance. So I'll deal with his specific imperatives now. He says we should protect the environment. Interesting, because a lot of things that vegetarians do aren't great for the environment either. You know, rice involves flooding and totally destroys the biotic communities when it's farmed. Would he also ban the consumption of rice? We also tell you that insofar as eating meat harms the environment, the correct response is just to tax the externality that it causes. Like we do with carbon taxes and fossil fuels and living. But also, lots of other things are damaging to the environment that we allow. Like this building is incredibly damaging for the environment. Should we burn it down? I assume he also drove here. He could have walked. Should he not have driven here? But also he tells us that we should feed the hungry. Look, I'm sorry, but the economy does not work that way. Feed that we don't feed to animals often just won't get produced. If you look at sociological studies on famine, it's not the case that there was a dearth of food, but that the poor lost access to food. Ireland, for example, exported food during the potato famine. What we should care about is the poor getting access to food, and he doesn't solve in this case. But moreover, suppose we did all become vegetarians, and all of the food that we produce we just sent to the developing world. We have a word for this. It's called dumping. When we dump many of this produce into these developing agriculture systems, we destroy local farming and sustainable development. A net increase in starvation on his side of the house. But moreover, there's no ethical imperative to give up things we enjoy to help the rest of the world. If there were, why the hell are we all here instead of stopping people from starving? Some number of people have starved during the duration of the speech, and none of us have done anything to stop them. If we had an ethical imperative to stop it, then it would suggest that we shouldn't be here at all. He said that animal cruelty is bad. Look, suffering is not intrinsic to the act of eating meat. It seems very strange to argue that something is intrinsically unethical based on the way that it is currently practiced. But we also tell you that humans are also animals, and so are part of the natural biotic community. Just as animals adopt in ways that interact with other animals, so do humans. If humans stopped using animal products, all domestic animals like pigs, chickens, and cows would be released. They would then suffer terrible deaths at the hands of predators because they would not have adapted to live independently from humans. True, humans have caused this adaptive pattern, but all animals affect the adaptations of other animals. Provided that domestic animals are given lives worth living, the opponent of human use of animals faces a dilemma. Either he must allow the continued use of animals, provided they have lives worth living, or two, eliminate the use of domestic animals, but at the cost of failing to bring into the existence many animals whose lives could be worth living and causing the painful death of currently existing domestic animals. Look, he doesn't have a coherent framework. All he does is show you a video and say we should care about that. That's not a moral argument. It's just an appeal to emotion. We have